Hello everyone, this is Terry Barnett, and I'm looking forward to another edition of From Me to You. So today's topic is 9 first-time home buyer mistakes. And so this is critically important since being a Florida licensed realtor, I run into these issues all the time. And so what I've done is I've taken and seen some other agents teach this. I've seen them try to clarify some things, and I wanted to create a set of these for myself, for my customers, for me to share. But also I'm hoping that you, no matter where you're at, you can learn from these. And maybe there's some agents that want to better themselves that could take from this information and make their education of their customers a little bit more effective. So the first so this is a set of 9 mistakes that buyers make. And so the first one that I want to get into and is the fact that we do things backwards. And so number 1 is looking before you get pre-approved. And I know shopping is exciting for some of us, but here's the deal. If you're just window shopping, you are wasting your time, possibly other people's time, looking for houses that you may not be able to afford. Now, what am I saying? Well, wait a minute, Terry, you don't have the right to say, well, if it didn't happen all the time, I wouldn't bring it up here. These are mistakes that new home buyers make, is they go out looking. So maybe they'll go online, they'll get some mortgage calculator or something, and they'll go, ooh, I can afford such and such. If you're paying cash, you could probably decide that. But if you're getting a loan, you don't get to decide how much house that you can buy. And so it's actually, if you're going out looking at houses and trying to get an idea of what's out there, you're doing it all wrong. Why not get yourself pre-approved first? You'll know exactly what you can afford, exactly what you can do. And then you can actually have a blast going out and shopping for homes because you'll know that you could have any of the ones that you're looking at. Instead, though, what buyers will do is they will go out looking, and they will actually step into number 2 here, which is another thing that we need to worry about. But they'll fall in love with the property, and then they won't be able to afford it. So mistake number 1 is looking before getting pre-approved. I recommend that you talk to your agent and you find out who they've used successfully in the past that's been through some tough closings and still pulled things out for them. You know, who do they use? Who do they like? Who is successful at making transactions as smooth as possible for customers? And go with that and get yourself pre-approved, and then you'll know exactly what you can afford, and you can put that into play, and then you can go out and have a blast shopping. Now, like I said, mistake number 2 is falling in love with a property. Now, falling in love with a property, first of all, properties will come on the market and properties will get sold. They will come and they will go. There's an ebb and there's a flow. So falling in love with one property, if you fall in love with a property, you will overpay for that property. And that's what I'm trying to caution you about. It's okay to make yourself a list. It's okay to and we'll talk about your list of wants and likes and loves. But it's okay to make yourself a list of some things that you're looking for. But falling in love with one property, you will almost always overpay because now you are at a disadvantage. You will give in during negotiation. You will want it so bad that you won't be able to walk away. And falling in love takes away that option as a tool during negotiation. You have to be willing to walk away, and falling in love with a property isn't going to allow you to do that. So you need to think, although a property may check off boxes for you, it may seem like it's the perfect property for you, you need to give yourself the power to understand that there will be another property. Houses, although you may think that you've found the only one that fits their criteria, houses are built like a cookie cutter system. There will be another house that is similar, that works, that will at least do what it needs to do for you, and you can grow into it anyway. All right, so be careful falling in love with a property. You don't want to overpay. You don't want to be stuck in a situation where you're at a disadvantage during negotiation. All right, so step number one was get pre-approved first before looking at houses so you can look at houses that you want. And number two, be careful falling in love with a property, so that gives you strength during negotiation. You can get up and walk away if that's what you need to do. Now, what I've put down for number three, oh, this one scares the heck out of me. Having the listing agent represent you. Okay. Oh, okay. So one of the strategies that I use in looking for customers is I do open houses, and I have a lot of people walk in open houses. And one of the first things that I do to educate them is it's not really to their advantage to have the listing agent representing them. Why? Okay, so there are many agents. They try to be ethical, try to be professional and everything, but keep in mind, in order to get that listing contract, they had to present themselves, and there might have been 2 or 3 other agents that sat down and presented themselves to that seller to get that listing. And that means that they probably beat out several other agents. And what did they do? They probably made promises like, I'm going to sell your house for the most money in the least amount of time, etc., etc. And so they had to earn that. And then it's to their best interest to stand on that, and get their customer the most money and do whatever they can to get it sold. So what am I saying here? What am I saying? When you're driving around looking at properties, the tendency is you see a property you like and you call the listing agent on that sign, or you see an open house and then you walk in and you meet that listing agent. Okay? Well, that is probably the wrong way to go. So what you should do is you should find an amazing agent that is producing, that will go out and hunt and represent you. That's what you need to do. You need to find somebody that you like, that you trust, and you need to have that person work hard for you to help you find a property. I can't tell you now, whenever I actually do, our open house strategy is so effective that other agents actually have us come out and do open houses for them. So whenever somebody walks in, of course, I have the ability to represent that buyer, and then the listing agent can represent theirs, and we can make it fair, and we can work for both sides and make that happen so that both sides have the representation that they need, right? So what I'm saying here is make sure that you have somebody working on your side. If you pull up to an open house or you pull up to a listing, when you're talking to that person, right, if you want to be represented right, don't engage with that person as a customer. Let them know, no matter what, right? You're the listing agent. I'm going to have an agent who's representing me because that's the best way to go. Now, if you went there and that agent is not the listing agent, well, then that might work for you, because then that person could be representing you, and then there would be a listing agent on the other side, which would help you in the negotiation process. So just make sure that you're being represented in the transaction. Now, whenever I bring this up, a lot of people think, oh my gosh, but that's going to cost me more money if I hire an agent. Okay, well, first of all, there's almost always 2 agents in a transaction, and that the way that the commissions work is normally the buyer side agent gets paid out of the seller side commission anyway. So in other words, the listing agent has negotiated their commission with the seller, and part of that is going to be shared with the buyer side agent. So it's not, in most cases, it's not going to cost you anything extra to hire somebody. Now, if it is, I'd probably question that, maybe negotiate anyway. Commissions are negotiable, right? So that might be something that you might want to negotiate if there was somebody trying to charge you to represent them. I think I'd question that if it was me. But, right, when in my case, what I do is I come into the situation and I get paid from the seller side commission. It's part of the marketing of that property, is paying the buyer side agent. All right, so my main point for number 3 is make sure somebody in the transaction is representing you. Very, very important. All right, so what else do we have here? Number 4. Oh, sorry, this one cracks me up. Trusting online valuations. Trusting online valuations. I can't tell you how many times, both buyer and seller side, people will go on Zillow and get this Zestimate and think that, well, this must be the truth. And I have been, I've been in this business for many, many years in every side of this industry, and not once have I seen somebody from Zillow show up to help value a listing or show up at an open house to try to look and see what that house is worth. I've never seen anybody from Zillow ever show up, or any of these online valuation websites. I've never seen any of them show up to try to get their hands dirty and figure out what a house is really worth. It's an equation, it's an algorithm, it's a computer trying to look at some information and figure that out. So trusting too much in an online valuation is a bad idea. Now, I like to go ahead whenever I'm doing a valuation on a property, I use it as one of the many tools that I pull together. Now, why would I pull up Zillow if I just told you, don't trust it too much? Well, any one tool, and this is a little bit of advice for you. Any agent who only uses 1 or 2 tools, which is the average agent, 1 or 2 tools for the valuation of your property, that would scare me. That would scare me half to death. What I do is I use 8, 9, or 10, depending on the property, because different tools work better for different properties, etc. And sometimes if something's way out of the ballpark, I just kick it out. So I do use Zillow as one of my tools. Why? Well, because just like you, the consumer hears about Zillow, they see Zillow, they're advertised Zillow, and so they may go to Zillow just naturally. So I want to know what it said. If nothing else, even if it's wrong, I want the ability to say, yes, this time it's right, or this time it's wrong, and here are 7 other sources that prove to me that this time Zillow, or whatever the estimating software is, wrong. Okay, so just be careful trusting online tools too much, and make sure that you have an agent that is qualified and educated in multiple tools, not just one. If they just pull up one, or if they just give you the standard, well, what I do is I look on the MLS and I compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. If they do that whole spiel and they just only have one way of doing it, I'd be careful with that as well, because that means that they're not paying attention to, or they're just negating other things, other information that is out there. So I like pulling multiple sources, including the human experience element that comes with being a real estate professional as long as I've been in the business. So be careful with that. Don't trust the online valuations too much. It's okay to look, but don't trust that that's the actual price of the property or the actual value of the property. Number 5, the unicorn. Oh my goodness. So I was on Facebook the other day and I saw this little meme come up, and it said, I found the perfect property for you. It's got everything you want. It's close to downtown. It's close to your work. It's got this and that and this and that and this and that and this other thing that you asked for and this other thing and all of these things. And for that ridiculously low price that you asked for. Unfortunately, it was sold in 1969. So the unicorn. Be aware that your local professional, your local realtor, is probably more educated than the average consumer on what is really out there and available in the marketplace, because they look every day. We're searching for properties every single day. So there's a very good possibility that they're more aware of when you say you want this and then you mention a price range. They're very aware of what's out there, and they're going to try to be honest with you, hopefully, and let you know if you're, and I would prefer, and I'll just say this out loud, I would prefer an agent who would be honest with me. Look, I know that you want this, this, and this. that is probably going to be very few and far between that we're going to find. And if we do find it, it's probably not going to be the condition that you're hoping it's in. So the unicorn property is that unrealistic criteria that we want at this ridiculously low price that we think that we should be able to get it for, and that just is the wrong way to be thinking. You should be looking for a property that is mostly what you want, and then long term maybe creating or changing it or adjusting it to be the rest. So maybe you go by location and a couple other criteria, obviously, something that you can afford that's in your price range and whatnot. But, if it doesn't have that extra room that you want in the future, well, then maybe that's something that you build on or whatnot. So just give yourself a little bit of freedom when it comes to that property that you want. I'll just tell you, one of the ways that I gauge a property is I score each property, or I have my customer score each property when we're looking at it. And I'll literally stop, and you'll experience this if you're working with me, is I'll say, okay, let's give this property a score from 1 to 10, 10 being your dream home. And I can tell you that in all the years that I have been practicing real estate, very, very few properties have ever been a 10. If it's 10, somebody's probably fallen in love. and that is, and that's a little bit scary. But most of the time, properties that people end up buying started off somewhere a 7 and 8. Okay. If it's a 6, if I'm talking to a couple and both of them say, oh, this is a 6, I'm like, we need to move on. All right, let's go to the next property. If they say it's a 7, my next question is going to be, well, what would make it an 8, 9, or a 10? And then usually the truth comes out. What's really important to them, what we could change. Sometimes it's price. Sometimes it's something that they could add on later. And that's a very fair way to do things. There would be no problem. And it would actually be, you would actually get more out of your investment if you bought something that was close to what you want right now, but you got it at a reasonable price, and then you made it, right? You made it what you want as time goes by. So that's not a bad plan at all. All right, so our next topic, number 6, feeling rushed, feeling the pressure. I would be cautious of the agent that makes you hurry. Because that kind of, they see something that you like. Now, there's a difference. Well, let me stop right there. There's a difference between feeling rushed and the pressure of feeling rushed or dragging your feet. Okay, so let me just say this. If you feel like you're being pressured and rushed, like you're at a car dealership and you got to buy it today because the deal is done, okay, well, first of all, just like at that car dealership, the deals and the cars actually are there the next day, okay? That car might be sold. That house might be sold. But there will be another house. There will be another car, right? So just keep in mind, you have to, just like I told you earlier, you got to have the ability to walk away, right? Don't let the pressure of the market, of the agent really get to you that much, okay? Now, the dragging the feet part. Sometimes it is my job to educate my customers when they've been dragging their feet. If we've looked at a couple properties and they said, this is the one, and then they got to think about it, and then they spend 3 days thinking about it, and they should have bought it, and then then they're looking for somebody to blame, and then they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, we should have taken action on that, right? Here's a mirror, right? And so there's a difference between feeling rushed and dragging your feet. If you keep finding the right property but you're not taking action, well, then that's something that you need to take into account. Maybe you need to go ahead and pull the trigger a little bit faster. So be aware that there is a difference. Don't rush it because you'll regret it if you do. But when you do find the right property, bam, it's time to take action. So that's the difference. It's feeling rushed is about being pressured into something that might not be the best house for you. right? Dragging your feet is when you found the right house, when your agent did their job and you did your job, you found the right property, and then you're like, well, I don't know, maybe we should reevaluate this until it goes away. That's dragging your feet. So don't feel rushed, but don't drag your feet. Balance. Number 7 of the first-time home buyer mistakes. Number 7 is underestimating your expenses, okay? Underestimating your expenses going into buying a home and underestimating your expenses going forward. So a lot of first-time home buyers will not make sure that they pay attention to the estimate from the mortgage broker. Okay, so that's another reason to get pre-approved first, is you can go ahead and get those expenses laid out of what it's going to cost you, the true cost of buying that home. If you're just going out looking, you're not figuring in the extra costs that are involved. So there's also closing costs that are involved in buying a home. Now, don't stress about too much about this. Some of those need to come out of pocket, but some of that could be financed in or gotten another way. And you need to talk to your agent about that. There's creative ways to get some help, including government assistance with your down payment and or your closing costs. So don't let it stress you too much, but just understand one of the mistakes that people make is that they don't figure that out. They don't budget in the cost of buying a home and then maintaining a home in the long term. Right? So year over year, there will be things that break, there will be things that need to be repaired, etc. Budget for those. Okay? And number 8, expecting a house to increase in value. First of all, many of us, like myself, have seen these late night gurus or these real estate books where they say, hey, you can buy a house for nothing down, flip it, turn it around, make some money off of it, etc. Expecting a house to increase in value is what gets you in trouble. The market is cyclical. Okay, if I draw it across here, it goes up and it goes down. It goes up and it goes down. It goes up and it goes down. That looks awful familiar. The real estate market is like a slow stock market. That would be a great way to say it. So it goes up and it goes down. It goes up and it goes down. Now, if you were to look over time, it does go up for the long haul, right? But the problem is a lot of people think, oh, well, I should be able to buy it now, and then, 3 months, 6 months, a year down the road, it should be worth more money. Well, not necessarily. It can actually go down in that amount of time because the market shifts, because the market changes. So I do think that you need to be very, very careful. And that doesn't mean that you won't get lucky, that you won't make a good investment and be able to turn around and flip something. But that's a whole different game. If you're looking for flips, then you need to let your agent know that that's your intention, so you can find the right kind of property. So you can buy it low. You make your money when you buy it, right? You realize it when you sell it. So you want to make sure that you win on the front end. But if you buy a property at the market value and then you think it's going to raise some large amount so that you can make a bunch of money, that might not happen. You need to be careful about that. And I would hope that any real estate professional would educate you on that process and just make sure you're prepared that, hey, in the short term, it could actually go down. The market crash that we had quite a few years ago, one of the houses that my family owned, we had spent, oh my gosh, $500,000 on this house, right? $500,000 on this house, a little bit over that, about 550. And when the market crashed, that house went down to less than half of what we had owed on it. Less than half of what we had owed on it. And it is just now making it back up to where it's almost what we had originally signed the paperwork for. Now, does that mean that house was not worth it? No, we loved that house. We picked that house. We had that house built. We personalized that house. We bought that house for the right reasons, right? And that's really my point in sharing that story with you, is that you should buy a house because it's right for you. you should buy a house because you intend to live in it for, let's say, the next 5 years. Now, overestimating, thinking it's supposed to be your forever home, well, you might intend for it to be, but it might not, right? But it definitely needs to be the right home for this period of time for you, right? So, but don't expect that it's going to raise in value, because it may not. There may be a market shift. There may be, and it could be nationwide, it could be your state, your town, etc. But be careful just expecting a house to increase in value. And the final point, now this is probably going to surprise some people because this seems contrary to what you think I might be doing here. So I make a living selling houses. So this one's going to come off a little bit weird. Number 9, one of the mistakes that first-time home buyers make is listening to or getting sold into the statement that renting is throwing away money. Wait, what? That sounds surprising, right? That renting is throwing away money. Now, is it? Depends on where you are. And that's and where you are in life and where you are in the things that you're doing. Look, if you are moving all the time, if you are going to be moving, if you know for sure that you're going to be moving around a lot within the next couple of years, then renting is probably the smarter way to go. Now, if you're thinking long-term, if you're going to be somewhere for 5, 10, 20 years, then buying is the way to go. That just makes sense, right? But if you have a short-term plan of moving around a lot, maybe renting does make sense for you. Now, I'm not saying it does. I'm saying maybe it does, right? So at least, don't listen to the people who just flat out tell you that renting is bad, renting is bad, renting is bad. Well, it could be the smartest thing you can do right now for where you are in life and the changes and adjustments that you need. You might need to shimmy and shake for what you've got going on in your life right now. Okay. Now, those of you who are thinking more long-term, 3, 5, 10, 20 years, then buying is definitely the way to go for something like that. Now, if you're an investor, there's a whole different thing. There's the flippers, there's the buy and holds, there's the wholesalers. So that's a whole different story. If you're an investor, I'd want you to talk a little bit deeper in that regard with your agent so they can tweak some things for that game. But if it's your personal home, renting or owning, depending on that time period. Now, here's something that's cool. Here's something I'm going to add to this. And by the way, anything that you see in this video that I might reference to for information, going to be more information down below, including links. And by the way, if you've enjoyed any information or you've taken away even one thing from this video, if you'd please subscribe and like this video, it helps us out, helps out the channel, and definitely very much appreciate it. Renting and leasing. Here's one of the cool things about what I just shared with you is even if you're kind of on the fence on whether you should be renting or buying, I actually have access to a program where you could actually lease a property with the right to buy it if you wanted to. So basically, you could literally go out and pick a home that you thought you might be interested in owning. But for the next year or 2 years or 3 years, up to 5 years, you could decide, you know what? I want to lease this property. Still haven't decided yet. But at any time, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, any time during that period that you decide, you know what? This is our home. We want to go ahead and buy it. You'll have a set price that you know up front exactly what it would cost you to buy that house, boom, and finish the process. Also, if you decided, let's just say your opportunity changed or things changed, the whole reason why you weren't sure if you wanted to buy to begin with, let's just say that your job took you across the country. You could actually decide not to renew your lease, no problem. So I have a program that's designed specifically for that. So if you're kind of on the fence whether you should be renting or buying, and now this is not a bad credit situation. So I have some other programs for, if your credit's challenged or whatnot. But if you do have decent credit, good credit, and you wouldn't have a problem renting or buying somewhere, then maybe this lease with the right to buy program is for you. So go ahead and reach out to me. So on that note, guys, I hope you got something out of this. And so what I want to do is I wanted to say from my heart to yours, I honestly wish you many successes along your path. Contact me if you need me. I would love the ability to prove to you that I want to be your favorite real estate professional. All right. Thanks a lot. Love you. Mean it. Talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.